Hello and welcome to the EcoCast by Actual Tech Media. Today's topic is crafting a comprehensive storage strategy. Strategy is so critical in the world of IT, and on the event today, you'll hear from experts at Netapp, Pure Storage, Atempo, Rubrik, and Synology. We've got some of the leading innovators in the world of storage and data protection on the EcoCast today. So when it comes to crafting your strategy for the future of storage at your company, you're in the right place. My name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'll be serving as your moderator. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got a great show lined up for you. Before we get started, just a few things that you should know about the EcoCast. We've got some awesome prizes, as always, on the EcoCast. I'll talk about those in just a moment. We want this to be an educational event. All of us at Actual Tech Media are former IT professionals ourselves, and we want to help you to solve your challenges, especially around storage and data protection on this event. So we encourage you to use the questions panel in your audience console, and we'll be doing a dedicated Q&A session with each of today's expert presenters. We also have our best question prize. I'll be talking about that in just a moment. And I'll also have some poll questions for you coming up here shortly and throughout the event. We appreciate your participation in those polls. It's our best way to get feedback from you on what you need, what you learned, and what additional information you'd like. We also encourage you to socialize this event. You can tweet directly from your audience console using the Twitter icon, and the hashtag for today's EcoCast will be automatically appended. And then finally, I encourage you to check out all of the resources there in the Handouts tab. These are hand-selected resources by today's expert presenters, ebooks, special links, case studies, and more. The prizes for the EcoCast today are 3 Amazon $500 gift cards. You must be live in attendance to qualify. Winners will be announced by me periodically during the event. And then we also have our $50 Amazon gift cards going out to those who ask the best questions, one for each of the sessions on the EcoCast. That is 5 sessions. We've got 5 Amazon $50 gift cards. So another $250 in Amazon gift cards will be going out to the best question prize winners. Those winners will be selected and contacted after the event. We'll contact all the prize winners via email. Winners must still meet the Actual Tech Media prize policy, which you can find there in your Handouts tab. All winners have the option to make a donation to selected charities, and all grand prize winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media. Over the years, we've donated thousands of dollars to charity, thanks to generous prize winners who have opted to support the charities you see here on the screen. If you win a prize and you'd like to donate it to charity, we would love to help you do that. We've also partnered with the Gorilla Guide Book Club to donate to the charities you see here on the screen. You can go to gorilla.guide or click on the Gorilla Guide link there in your Handouts tab to download free educational IT ebooks on a wide variety of topics. These are high quality educational new releases, and again, completely free, so make sure you check out gorilla.guide. The hashtag for the EcoCast today is ATM EcoCast. That will be automatically appended if you tweet directly from your console. You can follow Actual Tech Media on Twitter and me, David M. Davis, as well. Also subscribe to all the Actual Tech Media channels on YouTube, Facebook, and the 10 on Tech podcast, as well as our LinkedIn page. You can do that in the top right-hand side of your audience console. Now, before we get started with a few polls and then I introduce you to today's first expert presenter, I want to talk for just a moment about today's topic. Let's talk briefly now about the state of data in 2021. I mean, we're in scary times here. The volume of data and information that's created, captured, copied, and consumed worldwide is growing at just an incredible rate. This is a graph from Statista that shows the volume of data, and this is in zettabytes. So in 2021, they're estimating 74 zettabytes. That goes up to 94 zettabytes in 2022, 118 zettabytes in 2023, and 149 zettabytes in 2024. I mean, look at the difference from 2010, where we had 2 zettabytes, to 2022, next year, where they're estimating 94 zettabytes. This is just an incredible, incredible number. You may have seen infographics like this that talk about how by 2025, 463 exabytes of data will be created every day, and 294 billion emails are sent every day. These are daily numbers on this infographic, and they're really just mind-blowing. So where are we in IT? What are we to do about the data challenge? Well, we've got a number of challenges. We've got to store this massively growing data set. Your company has a wide variety of data. You've got email, you might have graphics for the marketing department, you've got financial data, you've got personally identifiable data on your employees from HR, you might have credit card data, you might have health data, and that data never stops growing, and it's growing exponentially as you add things like video and graphics. And then we've got to serve up that data at high speed. Our end users expect that data to always be available and always be served up almost immediately. We need to ensure that only those who need access to the data receive it, and we need to protect that data from malicious attackers. These ransomware type attacks are in the news every single day. It's a scary time. And if our data gets infected with ransomware, as one of the largest meat packers did this week, and as the petroleum pipeline did a few weeks ago, we need to be able to recover it, all of it, and we need to be able to do it rapidly with very minimal downtime. Not just a single database or the email server, but all of the data. So what's the solution here? Well, it's multifaceted. We need high performance, scalable storage, flash storage these days. We need strong security measures, multi-factor authentication. We need to make sure that our data protection solution is simply bulletproof and have total confidence in it. And then we need rapid recovery. Like I said, you got to be able to get all that data back and get it back rapidly. And finally, we need to have a solid plan for our storage systems for the future to store all this data, not just the capacity, but also the performance, as well as the data protection, disaster recovery, and rapid restore. Thankfully, you're in the right place on the event today to learn about some of the most innovative solutions in the world of storage and data protection. Before we do that, I've got a few poll questions for you. All right, I just brought up our first poll question. It's on the screen there in the slides window. Pretty simple question. How strong is your storage strategy? In your opinion, is it very solid? Is it just okay? Is it kind of weak and needs some improvement? Or maybe you just don't really have a storage strategy or a storage plan at your IT organization. So I'll give you a moment here to respond to that, and I'll share the results with you so you can see how you stack up with your peers on the event today. If you haven't submitted one of these polls before, just select the option that corresponds to you and your company there in the slides window. And in just a moment, I'll share the results. No need to push a submit button or anything like that. All right, thank you to everyone who responded to this one. Let me share the results now. And you can see 34% said very solid. They feel their storage plan is very solid. Kudos to you. Great job. 57% said it's just okay. And 4% said pretty weak. And another 4% said we don't really have a storage strategy. So, if you take away the folks out there who have a very solid storage strategy, it looks like there's a lot of room for improvement here across most IT organizations represented on the EcoCast. All right, let's see, second poll of 3, and that is, how confident are you in your current storage and data protection systems? Just kind of across the board here, taking storage and data protection. Do you feel very confident, somewhat confident, or not really confident at all? And to me, the real test of this is, say we had a ransomware attack today. Hopefully that doesn't happen to you, but do you feel that you could confidently restore your data? All right, thank you to everyone who responded there to that poll. Let me go ahead and share the results of this one with you as well. And looks like 31% are very confident. Excellent. Kudos to you again. 61% are somewhat confident, and 6% said not at all. So it looks like 67% there, if you total those two, roughly are really in need of some greater confidence and some more reliable, perhaps, storage and data protection solutions. All right, last poll question before I introduce you to our first presenter. That is, what's your time frame for adding new or updating your existing IT solutions? And specifically, of course, on this one here, we're talking about storage and data protection solutions like we're learning about on the EcoCast. All right, thank you to everyone here who responded to that poll. We do appreciate it. All right, it's now time to kick off the EcoCast with our first presenter. I'm excited to introduce a longtime friend and very super smart, very wise expert on this topic, Mr. Jace McCarty, Field Solutions Architect for VMware Solutions at Pure Storage. Jace, it's great to have you on. Take it away.
My name is Jace McCarty, and today I'll be talking about how to turbocharge VMware Cloud Foundation with Pure Storage Flash Array. I'm a Field Solutions Architect here at Pure Storage, and you can find me on Twitter at Jace McCarty. With VMware Cloud Foundation, VMware provides an end-to-end solution that builds your private cloud environment and extends those workloads to the public cloud with a consistent experience. Pure Storage ties into that by providing that modern data experience for your VMware hybrid cloud. Now let's get into Flash Array for VMware Cloud Foundation. If you're not familiar with VMware Cloud Foundation, VMware has really transformed itself to be more than just a virtualization of infrastructure resource company. Today, VMware Cloud Foundation is the leading platform to easily build, run, and manage the traditional applications as well as container-based applications. VCF is an integrated VMware software suite used to automate, orchestrate, and secure a multi-cloud platform and provide the ability to run applications anywhere they're needed. And this multi-cloud platform provides a single architecture across private and public cloud environments for operational consistency and a seamless experience. Now with VMware Cloud Foundation, they introduce two types of purpose-built domains. There's a management domain and a workload domain type construct. The management workload domain or management domain simplifies operations overall for the entire environment by using VMware's suite of tools to operate and manage that environment. Workload domains themselves are where the workloads will run and be provisioned in various ways based on the available resources. So think of workload domains as where that VDI workload would be deployed to, or a Tanzu-based Kubernetes workload, or traditional server consolidation, dev and test, things like that. Those are deployed in workload domains. And this is where Flash Array can tie in and really extend VMware Cloud Foundation. The management workload domain is where all the vCenter servers for the environment run, all the networking from an NSX perspective is managed from, and so forth. Additional components such as vRealize automation, vRealize operations are also run within the management workload domain. Now this is where Pure Storage comes in. With the introduction of VMware Cloud Foundation 3.9 in late 2019, external storage was approved or supported for principal and supplemental storage. Now, Flash Array can provide optimized data stores We're out of the business of assigning different media devices to different pools and then creating volumes on top of those. We do have very predictable performance with FlashArray. We have the ability to capitalize on shared storage efficiencies. We do inline data reduction as well as long-term pattern matching to really drive those data reduction rates much higher. Now, in addition to that, we have some very robust availability options with Active Cluster, Active DR, our asynchronous replication, as well as the ability to offload to object or other file services. So we can offload to NFS, whether that be on FlashBlade, capitalizing on some of our longer term snapshotting and ransomware capabilities. Or we can also offload to S3, possibly to AWS. We can offload to Azure as well. And at the same time, we provide integration with the vRealize suite. That vRealize suite, from the management perspective, we have native visibility with with a plugin pack for vRealize operations to provide the same type of visibility that a traditional VCF with vSAN environment would provide. So we can look at that storage utilization, provide better forecasting, look at overall performance, and so forth. For those parts of the organization that are interested in any events and tasks that occur in an environment, we also integrate with vRealize Log Insight. So we have that deep integration there to provide anyone in the organization that needs to understand what type of operations are occurring on FlashArray. We can do that just the same as a traditional VCF type environment. Where we really shine, however, is with our integration with vRealize Orchestrator as well as vRealize Automation. By providing over 150 different pre-configured workloads that can be used either natively within vRealize Orchestrator or as part of a larger service catalog with vRealize Automation, we can provide additional tasks either to traditional administrators, or we can extend the capabilities of VCF by providing self-service abilities from a storage perspective in terms of, let's say, cloning VMs or refreshing production data into test or things like that. We can provide native abilities with vRealize Automation that is included with VMware Cloud Foundation. Now, VCF on Pure is very agile and efficient. Keep in mind that FlashArray is a disaggregated approach where those resources are shared across one or more workload domains. Because we can share those resources across the workload domains, and we do not have any storage at an individual host level, servers can be provisioned in and out of workload domains on demand. If we decide to take one of our VDI workload domain servers and move it to our database workload domain, we don't have to move any data. At the same time, if we need to provide an individual data store only to that database workload domain, we can do that as well. So we're very agile in that capacity. We're also very efficient in that we have a much larger an increased infrastructure utilization. We don't require as many resources. We share those across the entire environment. And we can, especially from a capacity perspective, be able to realize some of the best data reduction ratios in the industry. Now, for environments that are already using vSAN, we can add FlashArray. So a combination of both VCF with vSAN and VCF with FlashArray can be used. So we can provide a more balanced environment where vSAN and external storage is used for both. This makes it much easier to move away from that t-shirt sized approach, much like when we're buying t-shirts for a sports team that we're sponsoring or for everyone in our office, where we have different shirt sizes. There's no longer a requirement to have different compute sizes in a vSAN and flash array based VCF environment. We can easily pick a single size vSAN node, and as additional resources are needed, we can provide those from flash array if we so desire. At the same time, we can expand that storage requirement in terms of capacity or performance independently of the amount of compute that we have in the VCF environment. If there's a need to increase performance, possibly a controller upgrade would be necessary. If we decide that only a capacity requirement is needed, we can also non-disruptively expand storage for one or more workload domains. And because Pure Storage doesn't charge customers for capacity that they've already purchased, the addition of new capacity results only in the delta of additional capacity provided. And because our data reduction is, again, the best in the industry, we can leverage that reduction across all of those workload domains with that shared storage. Now, some would ask, does flash array work with VCF in a hybrid cloud environment? Whether the on-premises environment has vSAN or flash array or both, we can still use the native mechanism with vSphere replication along with VMware HCX to replicate to that VMware public cloud. Now let's go into some of the availability options that are natively available when using flash array with Vsphere. Those can be extended additionally to Cloud Foundation. One of those availability capabilities is the opportunity to use the vSphere Metro Storage Cluster architecture. In this architecture, we have multiple arrays providing one or more volumes that are available on both arrays and are presented as a single volume. With this, we can provide cross-site, cross-campus, or cross-data center-based availability of workloads. Now, when configured in a vSphere Metro Storage Cluster approach and leveraging vSphere HA, we have the ability to provide automatic failover and protection of VMs from one site to the alternate in the event of an outage, whether that outage be network connectivity or power or other. But this process is automatic and automated and requires no input from virtualization or storage administrators, providing a true active-active availability for vSphere and VMware Cloud Foundation. Now, for customers that choose to provide more of an active-passive type of protection, we do work very well with VMware Site Recovery Manager. So we can very easily automate that process, whether it be through our asynchronous or active-active replication, or even for customers using VMware vVols. We have the ability to orchestrate that failover, whether, again, it be planned or not, automatically from one site to another. So active-active capabilities as well as active-passive capabilities natively with VMware Cloud Foundation. I'll go a little bit further and mention that if you'll notice here, we've got a couple of illustrations. Site Recovery Manager with asynchronous replication, whether it be our continuous approach with ActiveDR or our periodic approach with our asynchronous replication and our protection groups. So that's just one type of approach. At the same time, I mentioned stretch clusters or vSphere Metro Storage clusters. We can provide that with Active Cluster. At the same time, we can put those two together and provide active, passive failover capability. We do have some latency requirements as it pertains to stretch storage with vSphere Metro Storage Cluster, but that third site can be literally anywhere in the world, still managed by VMware Cloud Foundation, and we have the ability to provide active, passive based protection. Now, for customers that choose vVols, We natively have the capability when providing a storage policy-based management assignment, the ability to replicate that VVol to an alternate flash array. And that flash array could be natively within the same data center, could be in an alternate data center, or it could even be with our cloud block store product in Amazon or Azure. This is part of the native deployment process with VMware vVols, which are now supported in VMware Cloud Foundation. With this, as we assign policies to individual VMs, we can natively and automatically protect those VMs, either as part of simply a flash array-based protection group or as part of a site recovery manager protection group. Now, where this ties in from a global perspective is local snapshots as an example, that rack HA with active cluster, or possibly metro storage cluster, if you will. And at the same time, we can take those snaps, even in an active cluster approach, and then we can, from a longer term perspective, offload those to possibly FlashBlade, capitalizing on some of the capabilities we have when it comes to native ransomware protection. We can snap to essentially anyone else's NFS. With our Cloud Snap capability, we can snap to Amazon, Azure, or Google Cloud for even longer term snapshot protection and recovery. And then we also integrate with many of the major players from a backup strategy perspective, with native integration to FlashArray. And that native integration with FlashArray provides us the ability to offload those snaps, removing that stun that's normally associated with backups of vSphere environments. Now, going a bit further, I want to talk about some of the management and automation capabilities for VMware Cloud Foundation. I'm going to start first with that management approach. When it comes to managing any particular storage, the big question is what's going on with that storage? Okay. Now, we do have Pure One to look at the performance and capacity and change rate and all these other metrics as it pertains to an individual flash array. However, it's often difficult to be able to associate that with what's going on in that virtualized environment. Storage admin gets a question, why is my VM running slow? The storage admin then needs to determine, well, where's that VM, what LUN is it running on, and what LUN is it running on, and so forth. Vmanalytics is another free tool provided by Pure Storage that gives virtualization administrators the ability to look deeper in the environment from the array to the virtual disk level to determine things like latency, things like bandwidth, churn rate of capacity, capacity used, capacity percentage, and so forth. We even show CPU and memory utilization for VMs and hosts. Now, where this benefits VCF even more so, for the customers that are using VCF with vSAN and FlashArray, or even the customers that are using vSAN only in the management workload domain and FlashArray in the individual workload domains, our Vmanalytics provide visibility from the disk all the way to the data store, independent of what type of storage is used. That's right. The vSAN data store on the management workload domain or any other workload domains is also presented within Vmanalytics. Customers can easily look at, again, from the data store to the virtual disk, the performance, the capacity, the throughput, the IOPS, all these different metrics. For workloads that happen to be on FlashArray presented storage to VCF workload domains, we can go even further and see the same metrics for an individual volume or virtual volume, as well as the array itself. This gives us the ability to have much more visibility overall into the entire stack. Now, for customers that are more concerned with using the native tools that are associated with VCF or that come with VCF, vRealize Operations Manager, we provide a plugin for vRealize Operations Manager, a management pack, if you will, that provides the same type of metrics presented in Pure 1 or natively on the array to the VMware administrator. So the VMware administrator doesn't have to go somewhere else to see what the behavior of their VMware, of what their flash array is in their VCF environment. For those that are concerned with the tasks and the events that occur on flash array, we also provide a content pack for vRealize Log Insight. So that same visibility that administrators have looking into a VCF environment across compute, network, and even vSAN-based storage, we provide the same level of visibility with our flash array content pack. I personally, a little bit more, like this component, really the automation side of where we provide additional value to VCF. We have natively supported PowerShell, Ansible, Python, Ruby, and several others with an open source Terraform-based module for managing flash array. Now, where this often comes in is for those custom workflows, right? Complex orchestrations that are a bit of a one-off for this use case or this customer or so forth. Additionally, if there's a need for any ad hoc reporting, things that aren't available in native VCF reporting or things that aren't available in native flash array-based reporting, we can easily provide custom reports that aren't available out of the box. And because we also work with VMware Power CLI and the other VMware SDK offerings, we can report across that full stack. So where we've got where an ad hoc task comes in, we've got better consistency with those one-off tasks because we can integrate across the entire stack. Now, for those that don't do a significant amount of custom code, we've already created over 100, I think it's about 150 now, different workflows for flash array. And that includes vVol support as well as Pure 1 meta integration. Now, what this does is this provides the ability with that native automation capability in VCF, the ability to extend that also to flash array. I'll call attention to the Pure 1 meta integration in that customers can actually query Pure 1 to determine if, say, they have multiple arrays, which array is the least busy and where a new data store needs to be created. We can go even further, and for a multi-flash array environment, we can query Pure 1, ask which array is the least busy, and of that particular array, which data stores are least full to deploy a particular workload to. These are all automated, already created workflows available for use immediately within VCF. Now that can also be extended to vRealize automation in the capability of providing, let's say, a service portal where either administrators can automate the process of adding another flash array or creating a snapshot or creating a new protection group or whatnot for their use cases. They can go even further and customize some of these service offerings to where they can even extend some of the application requirements to their customers. An example would be a test and dev customer wants a copy of a production database refreshed into a test VM. This can also be accomplished easily with vRealize Orchestrator, but even more so leveraging vRealize Automation, which is a native capability within VCF. One of the barriers of adoption here in the past has really been with vRealize Automation is that it was an add-on. But with VCF, it's included and these capabilities can be taken into account and capitalized on immediately with VCF. Now, deviating a little bit, but still from an automation perspective, the typical process of removing a host from a vSAN-based workload domain, or really any workload domain for that matter, is that host has to be imaged and patched. It's got to be, some prerequisites have to be assigned. It's recommissioned, it's deployed. And then when we're done with it, we unassign it and so forth, right? This is not really an efficient at scale capability. Now, where Pure Storage comes in with flash array is we can do that once for every host. We image and patch it. We apply those VCF prerequisites, and then we take a snapshot of that boot from SAN volume. When it comes time to reuse that host, we decommission it in SDDC Manager. We redeploy that, we unassign it, and then we can revert to that boot from SAN and do the process again. So we can streamline that entire process. Now, to kind of wrap things up a bit, I'd like to add that keep in mind that Cloud Foundation is built on a VMware validated design, right? And that's really that really provides the ability to accelerate that time to market. VMware validated designs simplify the design and implementation of an SDDC. In most cases, they can reduce the deployment time from 4 to 6 months to just 3 to 4 weeks. That's like 6 times faster. This allows you to begin to realize the benefits of SDDC in a much faster time. You're not in the weeds managing all the components and building a design from scratch or researching static architectures. We've designed it for you so that an SDDC is delivered quickly and you can focus on the business. But once an SDDC is based on a VMware validated design is deployed, you can now put it to work, accelerating the time to market of business solutions and services on your own service blueprints. You can automate the entire delivery of these services and integrations with enterprise systems in sheer minutes. Realizing the outcomes that for IT that will drive that business value, that innovation, that customer satisfaction and retention, security, compliance, and governance. Now, these designs increase efficiency, and they provide a detailed step-by-step guidance to gradually reduce that time spent for such tasks as setting up and monitoring alerts, updating software patches, developing backup and restore procedures, and ensuring compliance with industry standards. VMware validated designs de-risk the deployment and operations of a software-defined data center. These are rigorously tested and continuously validated. VMware validated designs remove uncertainty, any possible errors, and downtime in implementing and operating a software-defined data center. All this helps drive IT agility. VMware validated designs provide agile platforms that are scalable and support a broad set of use cases and diverse types of applications that enable businesses to transform and grow, helping IT to become a competitive advantage. I'd like to follow up or close up with this particular slide. This is really an overall view of where we fit from a VMware Cloud Foundation perspective. Notice on the left, we have FlashStack providing VCF. We've got that private cloud. Whether we're principal, supplemental storage, we're providing additional capabilities in addition to vSAN. Notice in the top right-hand side, vSphere replication. We're natively using vSphere replication and HCX to move some of those workloads up to VMware Cloud Foundation or VMware Cloud, whether that be Azure, AVS, or the others. At the same time, notice private cloud number 2, we do have the ability as well to protect those workloads in other environments as well. So if it's VCF in conjunction with the VMware Cloud, or VCF just because we want to capitalize and take advantage of those validated designs and speed to market type approaches in deploying, we can still protect them independently of VMware Cloud if so desired. With that, my name is Jace McCarty. You can find me on Twitter at Jace McCarty, and thanks for your time today.
All right. Thanks so much, Jace. Really appreciate that. I've just brought up the poll question for everyone out there in the audience that says, what additional information would you like about the Pure Storage solution? And I'll leave it up here for a few moments. I'm afraid we ran out of time in our live session here with Jace. And Jace will have to get back to your questions electronically. But we've got a lot of great questions coming in for Jace and the Pure Storage team. So thank you for those. Keep those great questions coming throughout the event. And of course, we appreciate your feedback there on the Pure Storage poll question. I'll leave that up again while I announce actually our first prize winner. We've got an Amazon $500 gift card, and this is going out to Laura Idem from Connecticut. Congratulations, Laura Idem from Connecticut. Still 2 more gift cards to give out on the event today, and of course, don't forget about our best question prizes as well. All right, I'm assigning all of these excellent questions to Jace to respond to as best he can electronically. Thank you for those. Jace and the Pure team will do their best to get back to you to all the great questions. All right, thank you for your responses there to the poll. Let's keep the EcoCast moving. Now, we already announced our gift card winner. I'm excited to welcome Mr. Mike Oakes, Senior Pre-Sales Engineer at Atempo. Mike, it's great to have you on.
Hey, Dave, it's great to be here.
Absolutely, yeah. Take it away. Tell us about Atempo.
All right. So, well, I want to first thank you and the team for inviting us again here today. Also, I know people are watching. Hope you guys are getting some good insight out of these sessions on your systems and what you can do from a data storage capacity standpoint. So, with that being said, as David mentioned, my name is Mike Oakes. Real quickly, I'm a solutions architect with Atempo. Been in the industry of data protection, preservation, and storage close to 35 years now. And when I do these, what I like to do is a little bit about Atempo, so you know who we are. And then we're going to follow it up by a closer look at how Myria by Atempo can help aid in crafting a storage solution strategy. So real quickly, who's Atempo, right? So Atempo, we've been around, almost 30 years now. So we've been around and we bring to bear experience in the field of data preservation, protection, management. You see by the slide, 2,000 customers and 27 years of experience and 200 employees worldwide. We're well north on both of those. And we enable organizations to preserve their data ecosystems, regardless of that data set size, the organization size, geographical location. And our solution is designed to protect, store, facilitate movement, provide easily searchable functionality, quick retrieval of data. And just a quick note on our solutions, we're a software-based solution. You can reuse your own hardware, repurpose what you have. It's nothing large. When I do these talks, I'm talking about, and you can use VMs, you can use base metal servers, 1 U server, 2 CPUs, some cores, and some memory. And we help size those. We have sizing guides we help our partners with. So that being said, crafting a storage strategy, more precisely a comprehensive storage strategy for large petascale environments, it requires consideration of several key factors, as well as an appliance tool or tool sets or suite of tools in that appliance to address some key areas. And some of them we have here, right? So, scalable capacity management, right? All organizations hope to grow. Small ones become large, large ones become Fortune 500. You need to be able to change a solution. Your solutions need to be adaptable, but also adaptable with the appliances you're talking to, and that may be hybrid infrastructures, dissimilar infrastructures that don't talk to each other. A NASMA doesn't talk to cloud natively. GPFS doesn't talk to Lustre natively. So how do you wrap all those storage solutions, and how do you do it in a cohesive manner, not impacting, the user experience, but meeting the SLAs and requirements of the organizations? And data availability. Nothing's worse than crafting a solution, especially from a DR and archive standpoint, and then when you go to get the data, you can't get it back, or something's gone wrong. So you need a solution that can work from the entire gambit of scenarios you're looking at, the entire gambit of solutions and SLAs you need to meet. Air gap protection we put in here, it's kind of like the last gasp, right? The last protection, right? If everything else has failed, something put out air gap, tape in a vault. Think of it as your last data protection standpoint. But also coupled within these requirements is the ability to do data migration reliably, right? Reliably move all ACLs, all permissions, POSIX, whatever that file system structure happens to be, to the new target, without, again, impacting that user experience. All while you maybe still be running backups and archives, so not impacting that window of vulnerability, not increasing that window of vulnerability by overtaxing something or overtaxing the network. So making sure you have a complete infrastructure in place. The last one is flexibility and scalability. A lot of times people ask me why. Well, if you think about the changes in architecture, An appliance needs to be flexible. New products or new models or new modalities come down the pike. The product needs to be able to adapt to it, right? You need to be able to call it and use it when you need to. So a flexible, modular designed appliance or software appliance to take advantage of those new feature sets, but also scalable. As I mentioned earlier, organizations want to change, right? They want to grow. Every organization wants to get bigger, right? Which means your workflow is going to change. You need to be able to scale up your solution as need be. The solution from a tempo with Myria, once you have the software and you've purchased a license and the workflow you're in, the notion of having things that move data, we call them agents or data movers. Those come from us at no extra cost. Once you've purchased the software, you can have 100, you can have 101. The choice is yours on how many you put in place. So there's no extra cost from us on that standpoint. So real quickly, how does Myria help craft that storage strategy? Or basically, Myria is enabling several workflows with a single appliance. You see a couple here on the screen. We call these our 4 pillars. So the one at the 12 o'clock, the one at the 6 o'clock position, Myria for backup, Myria for archiving. These are basically what we've been doing for 30 years, data preservation, data protection. As I said, things change over time, right? We've evolved our product. We've added in, as you see at the 9 o'clock position, Myria for data movement. We did this some years back. We did this because people need to be able to replicate, sync, copy data, drag and drop, replicate 2 file systems or portions thereof a file system to a different location. Right? So this you can enable, again, under the hood with Myria. Coupled with, you see Myria for migration at the right. The difference between the migration and the other 3, think of the other 3 as something you're licensing for, software, capacity, and you're buying support year after year. Myria for migration is a little different. It's an offering where you turn it on when needed. You buy a license for it, a synchronization license, and it's basically time-based. The capacity of what you're moving, but time-based. Use it for however long it needs, 3, 6 months, and then when you're done, you can shut it down. So you don't have to pay extra costs for the tool. Use it when you need. Shut it off when you're done. License expires. You move on. So 3 to the left, think of as perpetual, subscription-based. 1 to the right, think of time-based. There's one other coming, and it's the 5th. I'm going to call it the 5th pillar. We're bringing in analytics later this year, and we did this intentionally because from our standpoint, to completely manage your data environment, you have to understand that architecture, that data landscape. So having an analytics package in the product, you're not going to pay an extra license for it. There's not an extra fee. We're including it. We think it's that important to make sure you have that tool in your tool bag and not having to go out and pay an extra fee for it. So real quickly, how do we get there? I'm going to use this quick example, and I have a couple of them here, but think about starting small, right? Have a scale out NAS. In this case, you need to do something, maybe backup. Maybe your SLA is you need to do a full backup with incrementals, every day, and a full backup once a month or once a quarter or once a year. Flexibility in the tool. You can automate all of this. You can also, it's all GUI driven. You can use CLI and API if you so choose. You have a REST API you can program to. But also you're pushing it out to tape with air gap security, right? There's also a notion, and I tell people a lot of times when I do these, I always want more than 1 copy of my data when I'm backing it up or archiving it, because nothing's going to be worse when I go to get that data, something's happened to it. So we have the notion of, we call storage manager containers, or think of it as a bucket. And a bucket's just a location where I'm putting data. I can do multiple copies. I can do 2 copies to tape in 2 different storage buckets or storage manager containers. Why is this important? Because I also can assign independent hashes to them, anything from an MD5 to a SHA something. And this becomes relevant because if you think about 2 different locations, they could give them both an MD5 with independent calculation. They're also independently stored within our database. And when we go to pull one back, and this goes to that data availability and security we're going to talk about in a second, but this goes to, if for some reason the hash doesn't match storage manager A, we can turn around and pull that data from storage manager B and give it out to the user that's requesting or the application that's requiring it. So we don't impact the user experience. We've kept the data intact. We've checked it on a restore. And then inside the logs, and we'll flag, hey, this area had an issue with this file. Then then you can go take a look and we can see what's wrong with it. But it's, again, always providing that data, building that strategy where your users aren't waiting on your data. Your data is always available. So with that, things grow over time, right? Small business want to become medium, want to become large, and then Fortune 500. So in this one, what you see is you have that same scale out NAS. I may be going to tape, but I've had more NASs or some other type of appliances come online in my environment. You can facilitate backup to all of those. It's just a matter of having the right capacity license for your backup. You don't have to change any software. There's nothing else to add unless you want to add some more data movers because they're in distant locations and you want to encrypt data, which is important for security, right, and protection of data. We can encrypt the data. If you put data movers in 2 different locations, we'll encrypt the data for you. We'll encrypt it as we pick it up off the storage on source, send it over the wire encrypted, decrypt it just before we apply it down to the other side on the target. But there's also a notion of another type of protection in here. And it comes with some of our tool sets that come natively within the product. And this one's called SnapStore. Now, what SnapStore allows you to do is you can take that scale out NAS to the left and maybe that one at the right at the 1 or 2 o'clock position. You want to use that as a backup, but more importantly, you want to use it as an online or DR backup where I can run on it in the case of my scale out NAS fails or my primary production storage fails. Now, we can do this because of some features under the hood. If we can talk to the APIs of these NASs or the file system on both sides, what we can do is we can use something called Snapshot and FastScan. Everybody kind of knows what Snapshot is. But what we do is with the FastScan technology, we can take a snapshot and we'll lock it the first time. We'll validate it the first time it's used for a backup or some other type of operation. And once it's validated moving forward, we'll just take another snapshot and have the appliance give us a differential change list, a snap diff, so to speak. And we'll use that to facilitate movement. Now, when in the case of a SnapStore backup, what we'll do on the target is we'll take that entire data set from the source and lay it down exactly like it looks onto the target. And then we'll use snapshotting with SnapStore every time we do an incremental to store any kind of changes. So you get your version changes in a snapshot, your latest is on the file system. In the case of some type of accident, nefarious act or whatever, when the production goes offline, you have to point your users to that copy. You can start running on it. And oh, by the way, you can repopulate with it, including with time navigation back to a particular point in time, back to the source once it's been reconstituted, back to that production NAS. So mixed with that, things change over time, right? My NAS isn't fast enough anymore. I need to think about using something like a parallel file system. In this case, we're talking about GPFS. Now, we're still doing all of our backups to meet our SLAs, but we need to get that data off that scale-out NAS onto that GPFS so we can populate it, basically, so we can use it in our production. So within Myria, with Myria for migration, we can do that. You can get very granular and move a single file or directory or everything, all depending on how deep you want to go and what you need to migrate. The important thing is here, we can migrate the data. You can continue protecting your data with your backups. And think of it just like almost like doing a backup. We can use fast scan and snapshot. We can then move all that data to the GPFS file system. You can then turn around and shut it down or shut down the NAS when you're done. And basically turn around and say, you know what? Due to my SLAs and my policies, I need to have that GPS file system backed up. And I'm going to back it up, say, to, a tape. I'll copy the tape and a copy to something on disk. So you're very flexible, right? You can meet those SLA requirements for your organization. Now, coupled with that, we all know cloud came down the pike a little while ago, right? So how do we use it? Whether it be on-prem or in the cloud. I should say on-prem or public. So in this case, we're showing AWS here. You could use AWS, Azure, something with Swift, something S3 based, choice is yours, GCP, as a target. So I could have a target on tape. I can do a target in cloud. 2 different storage manager containers I talked about before with 2 independent storage houses. Right? Protect my data, but also have it in different locations for access. So real quickly, a lot of times people get into an area where they need to replicate data, whether, with the COVID now that's going on, people are working remotely, maybe they need to share data in distant locations. Maybe I just want to have a replicated copy somewhere else for people to work on, to collaborate, maybe New York and London, different parts of the world, or maybe different parts of the city. So with the migration feature, with the synchronization and replication feature in Myria, you can also do that, all while you're still maintaining your SLAs for backup. But I can actually sync data between this GPFS file system and some other type of, parallel file system, or could actually be syncing to some other type of NAS. We can take those dissimilar architectures and use them, again, in a heterogeneous workflow to best meet those requirements of a particular organization. But coupled with that, what happens is maybe I need now bring in archive. This becomes important as companies age too, because I don't need to keep things on my storage that's 9 months old maybe. That's our business. Maybe the business policy, after 9 months, it's not really touched, but it's still sitting on our primary storage. Why? Why am I wasting that space? Why not set up some policy to say, anything younger than 9 months, back up. Or anything that has been touched within 9 months, go ahead and back it up. Anything that hasn't been touched, let's long-term preservation it. Let's put it to some type of archive. In this case, we're representing here Google or Azure, but it could be any one of those storage models we're talking about. Right? So I can say at 9 months, something hasn't been touched, archive that file. Now maybe I want to leave it on that source storage for another month, or maybe I decide, by policy, once it's archived, maybe I make 1 copy, maybe I make 2. Again, I always prefer 2. Then delete it from my source storage. Free up that space, or maybe tier it down. Maybe go from tier 1 to tier 2, and then from tier 2 out to cloud later. You can set those policies up for which to match your business needs. And then finally, right, what's next? I mean, nobody really can say, and I can't either, what's next, what's coming down the pike in the next couple of years. But what you need to know is the way Myria is designed, right? Flexible and adaptable architecture. Add appliances as you need to, data movers at no cost from us, but also a flexible solution we can call them those new storage models or modalities without having to do a complete reinstall of software, a complete change of my infrastructure, right? So basically you can change to meet the business needs whenever and wherever they reside. So real quickly, I'm bringing this one back up for a second, these 4 pillars, and it's, basically the reason why I did this, if you take a look from the perspective of the industry, Gartner recently recognized Myria from iTempo was listed one of the representative vendors for data management and services technology. And why? It's because Myria is a highly performant and a scalable platform that can adapt and grow as workflows and environments grow. These 4 pillars, and the 5th one I talked about was analytics, facilitate those type of data movement transactions, data preservation and protect, and that storage strategy we're talking about. Archive, backup. How do I manage legacy storage that's going offline, right, with migration or collapsing infrastructures? How do I do that seamlessly, but not impacting the user experience, right? Not impacting workflow, but keeping that window of vulnerability as limited, as small as possible for my backup data, for my archive data. That's what Myria brings to the table for crafting a storage solution. So that being said, you're probably asking yourself, with all that stuff I just threw at you, right, why should I think about using Myria from iTempo? And it comes down to a couple key things, right? So being able to manage dissimilar infrastructures that are geographically dispersed. As I mentioned earlier, Netapp doesn't natively talk to Iceland, which doesn't natively talk to Cumulus, which doesn't natively talk to GPFS, right? So how do you take into account all of those different appliances, platform operating systems, and use those homogeneous or dissimilar systems in a heterogeneous environment to meet my needs for backup, for archive, for storage, storage preservation, data protection, but also the ability to migrate when things are legacy, right? They've reached their end of life. I need to get off this particular piece of storage. I want to get to something bigger, faster, cheaper, right? More robust. So being able to use the same tool to migrate that data, collapsing infrastructures. We talked about data preservation and recovery, a little bit about security and the hashes. Also something we mentioned, there's full audit logging within the appliance, right? So audit logging for anything that touches data, we're going to log. Now, a lot of people just want this for the ability to, know what's going on when and where, but you need it for, God forbid, some type of nefarious act happens. You need some type of forensics, or a file's disappeared and nobody knows why. Well, you can go and take a look. This particular user deleted this particular file at this particular date, right? So there's no ambiguity. You've known what happened within your infrastructure. And then we also discussed, Snap Store a little bit, and of course, air gap protection. But also, something we bring to the table a little bit different than others is that fast scan technology we're talking about, being able to do incremental snapshots with the fast scan technology. This goes, again, to reducing that window of vulnerability, protecting your data. The quicker my data is backed up, the quicker I'm protected. Coupled with, of course, we're going to bring analytics in later this year. Again, understanding your data landscape is crucial to understanding how you manage your entire environment. And it's a tool we wanted to add at no cost to our partners within Myria. And the last one here, nothing is worse than having an incident happen and for some reason you can't get to your data. Maybe your tape drives are offline, or passwords have changed within your bucket. You don't know why you can't open your cloud bucket for some reason. You need an organization that's standing behind you with this, right? So at Tempo, we offer different models of support, 5x9 and 7x24. We have basically organizations placed throughout the world to help and back you up when needed. So we have them in Europe, the United States, and Asia. Basically, that, as it says there, the 24/7 sun never sets support and services mentality. And lastly, the last thing you're looking at here, right, is you're probably asking yourself again, does it fit my workflow? I have a particular workflow. So, Myria was specifically designed to address the unstructured data market. And in most verticals today, that's education to research, life sciences you see on the screen here, healthcare, government, it doesn't matter, local, state, federal, they're all pretty much, well, they have different regulations, of course, from a security standpoint, but also the major industries, right? They all have need to manage data sets, small and large, and they're growing over time. Nothing that we've seen in the industry is indicating any kind of shrinkage in data set sizes, right? And they need to be able to do that across dissimilar architectures. I don't know many organizations that put their faith in just one platform. So there's a mixture of homogeneous platforms, but they need to have those architectures work, or you need to have that architecture work more, so to speak, in a heterogeneous workflow. So being able to use the best of breed when and where needed, this is what Myria enables for our partners and our customers, taking dissimilar architectures or islands of storage, so to speak, and enabling and transforming them into a seamless heterogeneous workflow. And that goes to the heart, right, of allowing organizations to take full advantage of their current storage assets, wherever and wherever they reside, making sure that data is constantly available, protected for the users for now and for later when it may be recalled. Now, that's how you start crafting a comprehensive storage strategy. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to David for any questions or comments. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Yeah, great presentation, Mike. We do have some questions for you, and we've got some questions for the audience as well here in the form of polls. So I'm going to bring up our first poll for everyone out there. I want to call your attention to the poll on the screen that says, what is the volume of your petascale data set? And of course, we appreciate your feedback on that poll. And then we'll move on to one other poll while we take our questions here. So let's see. First question that came in, I see they're asking, can Myria support or work with Oracle RAC databases?
It depends if we're talking about just backing up the data or reconstitute an instance of the database. Again, we're for an unstructured data market, so depending on what the workflow is, most of the time, yes, but I'd have to understand more about the use case.
Got it. Okay. And then let's see, another question here I wanted to ask you is about, does Myria by Tempo have any size or scaling limitations?
Not that we've figured out yet. I mean, when I say we can scale data movers, 1 to 100, you could go harder than that. We do archives and backups in the hundreds of petabytes range already, pushing higher, so we have found no limit yet.
Nice. I like that. Let's see, another question here. How do we automatically archive cold data in complete security?
So when they say complete security, I'm going to say that's a double-edged sword for a second. So you can set by policy, I want to archive a specific set of data that meets some time requirement, we'll say. You can also do that. Maybe you want it encrypted. We can encrypt it in flight, as well as if the storage supports encryption at rest, we can key off of that. If not, what you can do is give us some type of encryption key, and you want your data encrypted with it at rest, and we'll also encrypt it at rest to protect it there.
Got it. Okay. Good deal. I want to go ahead and move on now to our next poll for everyone out there on the screen that says, oh, did I lose it? Here we go. What additional information would you like about the Atempo solution? And I'll leave that up there for everyone to respond to as well. We appreciate your feedback. Let's see, going on here to the Q&A, next question. They're asking, as my workflow changes, do I need to reconfigure or change the Myria software?
No, the software comes straight out of the box with all those feature sets I was talking about. You just have to license what you need to do. If you need to add archive in, you just have to add an archive license. If you need to add migration, you add the migration license. But there's no reconfiguration you have to do with the software.
That's good to know. Yeah, because things are changing all the time. You don't want to have to reconfigure
Exactly.
the software. So good to know. Let's see, next question. Can you back up to multiple targets as a single task with Myria?
Yes. So kind of those buckets I was talking about before, storage manager containers, you can put 1 to 20. And what they'll do is we'll start up a job and we'll back up to each one of those buckets.
Got it. And I like this question here from Chris. He's asking if you can kind of share some feedback from, current customers, like how has this helped them to make their storage strategy or storage infrastructure, more efficient?
So in a couple ways. So think about it from the ability to offload, we'll say your production storage, right? So being able to actually look and say, I have things that are of a certain age. I don't want them on production. I can free up that space for something else to be used. Plus, with the tools that we bring underneath the hood, backing up data without having to walk file systems with the fast scan and snapshotting technology, greatly, one, I mentioned this earlier, reduces that window of vulnerability so the customer's data or the user's data is protected. But also on the flip side, what you can do is you can enable self-archiving and self-backing up for users. You can set up users. We integrate with AD. Admins, of course, have to give them access to that particular piece of storage or archive that they're talking to. But what this allows you to do is even going to the cloud and reverse cloud as well, is you can have users self-archive, self-back up. So you don't have to have whole staffs that are dedicated just to that. But there's an approval process that comes into play too with this. And it really becomes into play with egress charges coming out of the cloud. Last thing you want to do is give people access to data in the cloud for their archive and backup, and they think they're only pulling back a file or two, and they're pulling back 500 terabytes or 20, a petabyte accidentally because they clicked on the wrong thing. This approval process says, hey, by the way, this user, and it goes to a group of admins, is requesting to pull this data from this location. Does they have access to do this, or do they not have access? And the admins can say, yeah, that's fine, that's known, or no, wait a minute, they're pulling back 500 terabytes. That's going to destroy our budget for this month on our egress charges. Let's go figure out what they're doing, and don't give them access just yet. So deny that transaction. So you can build some pretty interesting workflows within to help facilitate and offload IT resources.
Very cool. And then I know we're running out of time here in our Q&A slot or session, but kind of final question I wanted to ask you, Mike, is I know you said this is an all software solution. Like, what's the easiest way to get started with this?
So if you go just to www.atempo.com, you can get a hold of myself or one of our engineers. You can find all of our white papers, all the contact information, more about our products and what they can do. You also can request a demo or a POC, and the software comes with a 15-day temp license that you can try it out with all the features enabled.
Very cool. I like that. 15-day license, all the features enabled. Try it out. See it for yourself. Mike, it's been great having you on the EcoCast today. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, David. Always glad to be here.
Absolutely. And for more information on Myria by Atempo, also check out the Handouts tab there. There is a solution brief on Myria Atempo for backup, and you can see, actually not just backup, but for migration, for archiving, and there's a solution brief there with all sorts of details. So check that out. All right. Thank you to everyone who was responding there to the poll. We do appreciate that. It's now time to move on to our next presentation on the EcoCast. I'm excited to welcome Mr. Jeff Dickey, Chief Technologist for Cloud and Data Services at Netapp. Jeff, are you there?
I'm here.
Great to have you on, Jeff. Take it away.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, thanks for that intro. So yeah, I'm Jeff Dickey. I'm the Chief Technologist in the Office of the CTO at Netapp. And I'm excited today to talk to you about storage efficiencies and compute optimization. So Netapp's focus on the cloud began early last decade when we partnered with AWS to help drive hybrid cloud services. As a matter of fact, Dave Hitz was at Princeton with Jeff Bezos, as you see in the picture there. Dave went off to start a storage company, and Jeff launched an online bookstore that I think we're all familiar with. In a recent report, Gartner made the point that cost optimization will drive cloud adoption, and cloud optimization will ultimately be the most important part of your cloud migration plan and continuous cloud journey. You may be more familiar with Netapp as just a storage company, but over the last several years, we've transformed into a cloud-led, data-centric software company, and cost optimization is a key part of all of our cloud products. In fact, our motto is more cloud, less cost. There's a real challenge when it comes to hybrid and cloud-native workloads, and let's talk about some of these numbers here. So 68% of CIOs ranked cloud migration or expansion as the top IT spending driver. And ESG studies found that 73% of on-premise workloads could still move to cloud. And finally, 59% of organizations expect to be mostly cloud-based within the next 18 months. And really, migrations of these tier one workloads is the main challenge to cloud adoption. These are what's holding back, moving the rest of the environment. Your apps are all tied together, and these are mission critical applications that require enterprise scale architecture to handle the high availability and performance demands. Organizations tend to struggle in finding the optimal arrangement of cloud infrastructure and file services to meet their specific objectives for data protection and scalability, or that resiliency that they need for these applications. Netapp provides industry-leading block and file storage software with the multi-protocol support for Linux and Windows needed to migrate these storage-heavy applications and databases and DevOps environments into the cloud. So where are we a good fit? Well, if your company is in any one of these industries, we cover them all. And if your company has any of these types of workloads, which we all have in our environments, whether it's SAP and HANA, or modern apps with Kubernetes, or you're doing SaaS or EDA, we've got you covered. And at Netapp, we're focused on delivering application-driven infrastructure and building products so that our customers can also benefit from application-driven infrastructure. True cloud-native applications should be able to request its own infrastructure at the runtime. And we're enabling application-driven infrastructure while ensuring performance and availability and continuously optimizing with the ideal mix of purchasing models of compute, the instance types, and at all the right locations where your apps need to be. And we do this with a broad set of data services, including HA, right, high availability, CRR, which cross-region replication, all of the backup and recovery and compliance and everything that you need to do everything that's possible in cloud, but with those enterprise features in mind. We offer a rich set of APIs for provisioning and optimizing compute and storage, and on the public cloud of your choice, whether that's Azure, Google, or AWS. And we also integrate with cloud-native platform tools like the ones we all use, Chef, Puppet, Python, Terraform, and others. We have a full portfolio of products to meet you every step of the way in your cloud journey, from optimized storage and data services to continuous optimization of applications, Kubernetes clusters, and cloud instance cost optimization, along with infrastructure and application monitoring and optimized workload placement, whether you're migrating or managing those enterprise applications, virtual desktops, SaaS applications, cloud applications, or data lakes. And the global industry leaders trust Netapp to provide these cloud services and data protection and availability in all three clouds. And you're probably familiar with all these companies, if not most. Let's jump right into a couple happy customer testimonials before I dive into the nuts and bolts of how Netapp works under the covers. First is Copa Airlines. They fly nearly 16 million passengers annually, and that's a lot of baggage to track. So each baggage transport that they use, these data nodes must keep up with all of these changing variables at all the time. And they were experiencing performance issues related to their baggage reconciliation system, which affected customer satisfaction. And they were looking to migrate to cloud to resolve this, and they needed our help. And the solution was to migrate their Teradata data warehouse efficiently to public cloud. And what Copa Airlines did is they uploaded 19 previous on-prem SQL databases into AWS and using Cloud Volumes Ontap, and that resulted in a 75% reduction in baggage delays and a 90% success rate in arrival and departure punctuality. So, huge win for Copa. And they said they selected Netapp when they saw the performance in the proof of concept and the easy integration that we offer. Next is Reach, the largest newspaper publisher in the United Kingdom. They have their well-known Daily Mirror, which is just one of more than 70 websites, and they have 150 print titles. They were in need of a cloud solution with a scalable storage to consolidate their on-prem, all of their on-prem functions into a single location, and while achieving cost savings from deduplication and snapshots. So Reach migrated their on-premise data center, their on-prem DR data center to AWS with a failover process for databases and file shares, and scripted everything in CloudFormation. They were able to eliminate the cost of operating and maintaining a physical DR data center, and then by consolidating, they cut storage costs by 50% and achieved this 10-minute recovery point objective with automated failover, which is such a huge win. The head of technical operations at Reach said that using Netapp Cloud Volumes Ontap from AWS Marketplace, they've achieved recovery times in testing that were almost instant with as little as 10 minutes of data loss, which is quite hard to achieve. Another one is Snowflake, just an example of a cloud native company that's using our Spot software solutions to help keep up with demands and the growth that they're experiencing in cloud. Snowflake needed a flexible and efficient way to support their software build pipeline in order to keep up with demands for fast and frequent updates. And they were able to leverage Spot solutions on AWS to automate and optimize their Jenkins infrastructure so that it can automatically scale based on demand and trigger events in Jenkins. And they were able to fully utilize reserved instances, instant purchases, and they were able to easily utilize EC2 Spot instances. And one more is Sling. I think everyone's familiar with Sling and their service. They're another customer that needed to reduce costs without sacrificing availability in the cloud. They implemented Spot solutions for ECS and EKS to automate the just-in-time scaling based on real-time load. They were able to automatically balance a mix of EC2 compute resource types to meet performance and availability requirements and take advantage of EC2 Spot instances to really get that cost savings. The Netapp is the analyst-declared market leader of choice to serve enterprises and their most intensive workloads. The production-level workloads require a highly resilient and performant-tuned unified data experience from hybrid cloud to on-premise and even things like AWS Outposts. And we can even take aging third-party data appliances from on-prem to AWS, Azure, and GCP. So I think we talked earlier about 59% of enterprises surveyed just last year still require better cloud optimization efforts from the report we talked about. And when operating, enterprise scale, that extra muscles are needed to cover the further aspects of storage and data operations in cloud, and especially in the cross-region deployments. Our unified platform is tied together by Netapp Cloud Manager, and Cloud Manager is an advanced control plane that extends management and secure multi-tenancy capabilities and securely as a service, and is available in the cloud marketplaces. In addition, Cloud Manager allows you to manage your cloud volumes infrastructure as code, which that allows you to the speed and flexibility necessary for automating application and data recovery. So to better utilize resources with optimized performance and cost, you need a comprehensive monitoring service. And we have that covered with Netapp Cloud Insights, providing a complete visibility into the platform's elements as well into user applications themselves. Cloud Insights turns information gathered into actionable intelligence through an integrated analytics process, enabling this enhanced control over the performance and utilization of different workloads. It's also a SaaS product that has reach into every cloud that you're using and into your on-prem. Cloud Insights, it also provides early detection of ransomware and other malicious users through integrated user behavior analysis. It's actually able to detect anomalies, whether it's ransomware or an internal user downloading too much information, and can programmatically snapshot your data and protect it with features like Worm that keep you in control of your data and eliminate unplanned outages. For those who aren't familiar with Netapp Ontap data management software, it's consistently stated as the enterprise block and file storage. So through our AWS partnership, the Ontap operating system was brought to AWS nearly a decade ago as Cloud Volumes ONTAP. This is a self-managed storage service that deploys on native cloud resources and consumes cloud services. Our enterprise-grade storage is available in 2 different flavors. That first is called Cloud Volumes ONTAP, and this is for the hands-on, self-managed cloud architect. It can be customized to fit specific production-level applications. And we also have a fully managed storage service built for companies and users that don't have those cycles to worry about setting up and provisioning file servers and storage volumes and replicating the data, installing file server software updates and patches, and managing the failover and failback and manually performing those backups. So we can take that all off of your plate so you can focus on innovation, and that's called Cloud Volume Service or Azure Netapp Files. Either way you consume Cloud Volumes, it's equipped with the storage efficiency features required by every enterprise seeking to optimize their block and file storage footprint to save huge amounts as they migrate these enterprise scale workloads from on-prem to cloud without that need to re-architect the applications. CVO, which is Cloud Volumes ONTAP, supports both NAS and SAN from the same instance without having to re-architect your storage and applications. CVO offers increased storage, high availability, and support for the dual protocol needed for Linux and Windows. And CVO reduces that storage cost with data tiering and will manage that hot and cold data to move colder, seldom used data to S3 object store. We also have native built-in cross-region replication features critical to operating these mission-critical applications in the cloud, and it's a key part of high availability. So how do you lift and shift in the shortest time with zero code to write and without any new training? The enterprise file-based workloads have evolved, and these modern applications are certainly big, but they're often mission critical, and they need speed, enterprise-level availability, easy management, and strong data protection. Netapp has storage and migration certifications for workload mobility of data-heavy migrations for companies that have cloud mandates of their mission-critical applications. And Cloud Volumes ONTAP addresses the data gravity concern by delivering a seamless data migration path for these large data sets and databases from multiple sources into the cloud with our SnapMirror technology, replication, and also for third-party storage services with Netapp Cloud Sync, so that we can actually migrate your data for your critical applications, no matter what device it's on or where that storage lives. You could also leverage the integrated snapshots copies to improve the application availability with an easy replication for backup DR and instant copies to really simplify application test dev and accelerate that time to value with reduced time to market, going from those months and weeks into hours and minutes. So the last thing I want to touch on is compute optimization and cost savings. So to really understand the value of Spot, we need to talk about cloud purchasing options. And there's 3 ways to buy public cloud compute. The first one is on-demand compute. You turn it on, you pay for it, you turn it off, you stop paying for it. It's really the most expensive way you can buy compute per unit. Next is reserved capacity. And so reserved instances and savings plans are where you're signing up to pay for this instance, whether or not you're going to use it. It will lower your rate a little bit, but ultimately you do have to use it. And if you don't, you're still on the hook to pay for it. And this makes up about 90 to 95% of the way enterprises buy compute today. And there's a lot of waste in that. And then there's a third model, which is excess capacity. And so Spot instances on AWS or Spot VMs on Azure and preemptible VMs in GCP, this is really the cheapest option. But it's also, in customers' minds, the most difficult instance to use, and it's the most risky instance to use as well. And what this is that idle capacity sitting in the data centers of these cloud providers that's not being consumed or paid for by anyone else. And the cloud providers are selling this to you at 10 to 20% of the cost of these on-demand, but with a huge catch. And that catch is that they'll take that instance away from you at 2 minutes notice when somebody wants to turn it on and pay full price. So the key to Spot is how we provide an SLA for the use of the excess capacity model and automate and proactively manage the deployment and failover when those instances are recalled, or even better yet, predict when they're going to be recalled and fail over in a graceful manner. So what we're doing is really opening up this third option to run production highly available environments with guaranteed enterprise SLAs on Spot instances. And with Spot, we save you money on your compute spend, and we're going to provide those high availability guarantees and SLAs. And it's really simple to use and start saving money right away. What we do is we take our customers from the left chart here, which is provisioning resources against your demands in homogeneous instance types using on-demand compute, which is really the most expensive way to buy it and to do cloud. And by the nature of over-provisioning, because you have to make sure you have the least minimum amount, you're already overpaying. On the right side is using Spot, and since we understand what the applications are doing and demanding, we're able to really right size and scale in a dynamic way what types of instances we're using and how we're deploying them. The Spot portfolio starts with Cloud Analyzer and gives you visibility into your cloud environment. It understands what your costs are and understands where the opportunities for optimization are and points you towards the right tool for the job, regardless of what your environment is. And what we're ultimately doing here is aim to optimize cost. And we have 3 products. Eco is for typical monolithic applications and where we're going to help manage your reserved instances. And Elastic Group is for more elastic style applications, and we're going to help you scale those applications across Spot instances. And we're doing the whole management of that whole process and saving you that money. And finally, Ocean. Ocean is for cloud native applications leveraging Kubernetes. And it's really where we see the most cost savings. So customers on average save 73% using Ocean, right? The more modern infrastructure customers with Kubernetes environments are able to save up to 90+% and deliver on SLAs. And we run in large-scale production environments that are highly available, like Ticketmaster and Vmware, where downtime actually equals revenue out the door for those businesses. And so the best part is you only pay when you save money. So we're success-based pricing, and we define success as dollars saved in your environment. So the service cost is based on how much we actually save you. Example use cases are HPC and cloud applications. I talked about containers and Kubernetes. We see a lot of different applications in the CI/CD infrastructure, but we're finding more and more use cases as we go on. I talked a little bit about several ways to leverage application-driven infrastructure to achieve cost optimization across the hybrid cloud through tiering and leveraging spot and reserved instances, data lifecycle management and governance using Cloud Volumes ONTAP, and accelerating the transition of enterprise-class workloads by providing high-performance storage and enterprise data services necessary for those Tier 1 applications. So your starting point for anything cloud by Netapp is at cloud.netapp.com. It's also our portal for logging in to Cloud Manager. And there's a test drive. So please, use this link and test drive Cloud Volumes ONTAP. And thank you very much.
Great presentation, Jeff. I really appreciate that. We have some questions for you. And while we do that, I'm just going to bring up this poll for everyone out there in the audience that says, what additional information would you like about the Netapp solution? So lots of good questions coming in. If you haven't got your question in, now is the time to ask. We do want to hear from you. We want to hear about your challenges and your questions around the Netapp solution. So let's see, first question for you, Jeff. This one comes from Michael, who asks if you could elaborate on how the scaling for hybrid cloud is less disruptive than, say, Azure's own methods.
Sorry, you say scaling into cloud or scaling cloud?
Scaling of hybrid cloud.
Yeah, so there are actual resources. Every cloud provider has their own tools for doing that. And where we're a little bit different is we're able to do that cost savings and scaling across whatever cloud you're in. And also we're able to provide that the multi-cloud platform of cost savings. So it's a single dashboard that you can look at to figure out how to save money and do that auto scaling and not have to figure out how to use each cloud's console. So it's really in that spirit of multi-cloud and hybrid cloud management.
Got it. Okay. And then let's see, Bradford's asking, does Netapp guarantee availability with Spot?
So because there's, what's happening is we're doing machine learning and on the marketplace, on the Spot marketplace. And so we're able to actually predict when an instance is going to be pulled. And so the way the market works, it's kind of cost-based, right? So we can actually figure out when that was pulled last time, how much the price was that made it get pulled. Can we offer a higher price for that and keep that instance there? So we have about 10 years of that data on the marketplace, and we're continuing to crunch that data and look for those the best possible instance types. We have customers that have never had an instance pulled for their applications, even running Spot. So, I think that's the secret sauce of what we're doing is in our machine learning around the marketplace so that we can provide those SLAs. Very
cool. Let's see, next question. What are the most common challenges that you see in cloud migration?
The biggest challenge is that data gravity piece, right? And another challenge is, most applications at some point, want to talk to each other, and the more you start moving into the cloud, the more of this big gap and separation you have. So we typically have all of the low-hanging fruit applications migrate to cloud, or the new cloud native applications, and we have this big gap between those and our new business and the legacy part of the business with those big enterprise apps, which really are in most times the revenue generating apps. And so the longer we have this gap, the more difficult it is to bring that infrastructure together and into cloud. So it's, how do we get that data successfully moved and migrated into cloud, and how do you get the right performance, and how do you pay for that performance in a cloud fashion, right? And how do you dynamically tier and scale those data footprints and connect that to these critical applications that typically require more horsepower than most shops are used to running in cloud. So those are the big issues that I'm seeing.
Okay, interesting. And then we talked about ransomware earlier in the event. I like this question because they're asking, can Netapp help to protect me from ransomware?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're doing too is we're looking for these anomalies. We can see that something happened on this data volume. It's not usually accessed at that time. We're looking at all these different things that don't look normal. And what's nice is we can programmatically take a snapshot and use our Snap Vault technology, which is that worm, and protect it so that you can't write to that. So you're able to have your data protected, and the instant it could be vulnerable, and you're protected against that ransomware, and you're also notified of internal issues, right? A lot of those attacks and a lot of that data loss comes from inside the firewalls, and so we're able to detect larger than normal data transfers and who is doing that transfer, and so we can remedy that really quick.
Excellent. Let's see here. Wally's asking, can Netapp help with cloud migrations?
Absolutely, yeah. We do it a few ways. We have a few products that facilitate that. If you're a Netapp customer, we have those built-in technologies that will copy your data into cloud, whichever cloud you want to be in, and do those snap mirrors. We also have a product called Cloud Sync, which will also sync data from anywhere to anywhere. And then we do have a professional services team too that does that cloud migration work and can help focus on those tier 1 applications.
Excellent. So let's see. They're asking here, can I use Netapp to get my data to AWS even if I don't have Netapp hardware on-prem?
Yeah. So we have a software as a service called Cloud Sync it's basically pay for use like a traditional SaaS product, and you're able to connect in to your data sets and create these sync points to wherever you want to be. Like if you want to be in a certain region of AWS, we're able to actually sync that data over to AWS and keep it in sync. So we have customers using this for cloud migrations, and we also have customers using that for different use cases like backups and DR or cloud-to-cloud migrations as well.
Excellent. All right. Well, Jeff, I'm afraid that's all the time we have here in our live Q&A. If folks want to get started with Netapp here, you talked about just going to cloud.netapp.com. Is that right?
That's correct.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being on the event today, Jeff.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
For more information on Netapp, visit cloud.netapp.com. Also check out your Handouts tab there. There is an ESG showcase on enterprise caliber cloud file storage from Netapp. So make sure that you check that resource out. It's now time for our next Amazon $500 gift card winner. This is going to James Amaro from Pennsylvania. Congratulations, James Amaro from Pennsylvania. So got another gift card to give out on the event. And of course, our best question prizes are still to be determined. So keep those great questions coming. It's now time to move on to our next presentation on today's EcoCast. I'm excited to introduce Stefan Nobe, Sales Engineering Manager at Rubrik. Stefan, are you there?
I am, David. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah. Thanks for being on. Take it away.
Fantastic. No, thank you so much for having me. I was listening into the content prior, and it sounds like a really informative day. I'm really appreciative of the opportunity to speak, and I really appreciate everyone's time on the call today. I as you mentioned, right, my name is Stefan Nobe. I am the sales engineering manager for Rubrik in the New York area. I've personally been with Rubrik for, this is my 5th year, but I guess, you could qualify me as somewhat of an industry veteran. I've spent time with some of the organizations you've spoken to, the audience has spoken to today, working in storage, infrastructure, cloud, and primarily data protection throughout my career. And, I'm certain the audience is wondering, why is a data protection organization, presenting in a session around crafting a comprehensive storage strategy, right? Another section of the audience may be asking, oh, great, all this cool stuff that I'm hearing about now, a backup guy is going to come and tell me how I can't use any of it, right? And, I know that's the classic interface with data protection. And what we thought we'd do today is, just take a little bit of a different approach, talk about, storage strategy, how data protection has classically interfaced with that, and, how that has modernized over time and how data protection has modernized over time, and then talk about some of the key tenets there. So hopefully that's a good use of everyone's time. And, I'll just kick straight into it. So, I'm certain for everyone on the line, that has historically been involved with systems, with infrastructure, with storage, it's not going to be a surprise to hear that, storage strategy today and historically has always comprised of, a tiered model, right, that matches the service level objective that you're trying to achieve for your business to a return on investment, right? So that you can run your business in the most efficient manner, right? And classically, you might have a tier one, high performance a storage, a tier 2 that satisfies a different use case, right, in terms of capacity. And as we've grown, we've seen other tiers like cloud, archive tiers for backup, and others. There have been tier 0s, right, tier 2.5, tier 3s, right? But the bottom line is always the same, matching the need, right, to a cost structure, right? And historically, what you've found over time is that you've had to implement different backup architectures to handle the different workloads and needs of those storage tiers in your environment, right? And that's led to a number of different point data protection solutions, be they from vendor-provided or homegrown tools that exists in enterprise organizations today. And what happened is, as businesses have grown, the amount of data to protect has grown. Those solutions have become much more customized, let's say, or much more niche in terms of what they're able to provide. And furthermore, from just having multiple point solutions, now we've run into scenarios where at a high level, there are multiple different solutions that even comprise a single backup solution. You may have separate ones of those for each tier that exist in your environment as you race to satisfy the RTO, RPO, and other compliance requirements of those different tiers of storage, right? Historically, what's happened from there, and some of this may be, really near to the heart for the folks on this line, right? But typically, you've seen that the requirements for data protection and the abilities of those solutions often created limitations that move upstream into the storage architecture itself. And as storage providers, vendors, solutions have modernized, we're left with many of those vestigial limitations in modern day backup data protection design. A few of them are just listed here, but I'm sure we could go on, right? Upstream things like size limitation on LUNs or VMDKs to satisfy specific server RTOs, right? Or the use of NDMP, right? to the limitations of NDMP in terms of volume size, right? And then how your data has grown on tier 2 storage repositories to be multi-petabyte, and NDMP can't keep up, right? And so we're left managing more LUNs than we need to, as an example. And then they also have cost implications as well, right? You're thinking about cloud, and very often the solution is just to develop something homegrown or run software in the cloud, which may not be the most efficient utilization of that tier. And of course, offsite costs and things of that nature for backup storage tiers and things like that. And so this list could go on and on. We just wanted to provide a couple of examples of data protection affecting the ability to take advantage of modern storage, and actually affecting the cost and visibility as well. And what you saw from there, as data protection struggled to keep up, is just an immense amount of sprawl, right? Not only now do you have to continue to manage, right, multiple LUNs, right, where some of the storage providers you've spoken to today, right, have built flash systems that remove the limitation of fan-in, fan-out ratios to manage disk performance. Well, you're still kind of stuck with those. And then additionally, between your end users and your infrastructure administrators, now they're forced to, because of the complexity of the environment and the realities of the modern world, utilize their own mechanisms which you don't have insight to, right? A great example might be DBAs, right, that will perform their own database backups, right, to other tiers of storage, or perhaps just JBOD, or VDI users that resort to keeping data on the edge, right, on their systems, or even just kind of doubling up and not understanding where cold data is, and then having data that's having multiple copies across different tiers that you have no visibility into. And this issue gets exacerbated, right? The more and more that you go along. So why do we want to talk about modern data protection, right? And what is modern data protection, right? And that's where we want to go from here, is just talking about, modern data protection strategy should enable and extend the storage strategies and that you've seen today, and solve for the challenges of today, because they're much different than what we were solving for 10, 20 years ago, right? And so what we wanted to do was just kind of put together what we feel is maybe the most basic principle list, right, of what to look for in a modern data protection architecture or solution that would simultaneously enable, again, those key tenets of all the modern storage providers of today, whatever they may be, cloud, on-prem. And so we these are kind of what we feel, right, are some of the key tenets. Your data protection strategy, for those of you on the phone, certainly can encompass way more than just what's part of this list, right? It's difficult to customize a presentation like this to everyone in the audience. But if we're just kind of honing in on, how are we enabling, storage and storage features and functionality, these need to be central tenets, right, in our mind. And, just going down the list: data immutability, centralized management, scalability at the enterprise level, policy-driven automation and orchestration capability, extensibility into your environment, native cloud integration, and data insight, right? And if we can hit these core marks, then we know that we're creating a data protection architecture that can keep up, right? Not just with today's storage strategy, but also be future ready, right? As we continue to move to take advantage of cloud, SaaS applications, et cetera. And so we thought it would be helpful, right, to take you through these tenets, right, and just talk about what they are a little bit more in depth, what it is that they're going to provide for you, and maybe some questions that you could ask, your data protection team internally or the providers that you're interfacing with or evaluating, right? To help understand, how these are going to help you in today's world. And so if we start at the top, it's hard to not start any conversation about data protection without speaking about data immutability, right? This is the guaranteed, right, integrity of the data itself, right? So I know it's a bingo word to some extent these days, but it truly is important to guarantee that your data cannot be changed, and that continuous integrity checks and self-healing are a normal part, an automated part, quite frankly, of a data protection solution. The backup itself it's a storage of last resort. I often make an analogy that it's the seatbelt in your safety car. There are certainly a number of different protection mechanisms that you've probably heard about prior to this discussion. But when you're making a call to the backup team to provide a recovery, it's because all of those other methodologies have failed. And unfortunately, a seatbelt is a little simpler, right? Or I should say, data protection is a little bit more complex than a three-point safety belt. But the bottom line here is that if there's high confidence in the recoverability of the backup, that's the first and foremost point into ensuring that end users, infrastructure admins won't have to resort to alternatives that will create unnecessary data sprawl, right? And so that's why we want to start here and move forward, right? First and foremost, you have to trust it. And some great questions to ask. Hopefully this is food for thought, right? But how does your solution, or how does a data protection solution prevent against quote unquote God mode data deletion, right? How are you ensuring that admins, rogue admins, or compromised credentials, don't go in and delete, expire, or affect, the backup data itself? It's probably the most common route of exploitation. If you've been following, any of the, White House updates, right? Zero trust is a big term right now. And so how does the solution satisfy a zero trust architecture as we move into this new methodology, right? It's actually really important to the security of a platform by removing vectors of attack. And then, like anything else, right, what is the data integrity monitoring of that solution? Sure, the data when we wrote it was good. How are you continuously monitoring that to ensure that it stays good, right? What self-healing methodologies might you employ, or alerting should you run into any of those things? So a core tenet here, probably spent a little more time, right, than I anticipated, but can't say this, strongly enough. I mean, the world we live in, there's a new ransomware discussion every day, and it's top of mind, I think, across every organization. Ahead of here, centralized management, right, or just the visibility into all of your data from one central place, one single pane of glass, right, with built-in reporting and analytics, right? A complete data protection solution for your environment needs to provide not only a broad scope of support, but enable compliance reporting and control of all of your critical data from end to end, right? And so asking how many products are part of the solution. Oftentimes you can find that you're going to have 2 or 3 different softwares married with 2 or 3 different hardware providers, and how are they interlocked, and how are you able to report against that? Obviously, is the solution going to include the scope of what's relevant to you and your organization? Are you just going to have to manage 2 or 3 because you can't find, because this solution doesn't provide appropriate protection for, several of your critical workloads? And then asking, outright, how can you provide compliance reports for your entire environment? Everyone is probably familiar with the audit process. How are you going to simplify that and gain compliance across all the data that's critical to you? Moving forward, scalability, right? The flexibility to grow with your business and avoid hardware lock-in, right? And right here, it's as your business scales, it's really important that your data protection solution scales similarly to remove the overhead from having to manage multiple software and hardware deployments, right? I mean, think about the investment cost that's made into the storage platforms to give millisecond latency and zero downtime, right? How is it effective, right, if then you still have to take downtime because of your data protection solution, right? And just another example of the upstream, affect of data protection itself, right? And so ask, what happens if you experience unexpected growth, right? How will you expand capacity? And also, not just because it's a cost exercise, but, many organizations these days have flexible subscription offerings to make sure that you're not stuck with old hardware, right? So what happens, when you do need to renew, typically in 3 to 5 years, whatever it is that's relevant to your organization, understanding that ahead of time. Policy-driven automation, right? So business policy-based protection and end-to-end lifecycle data management, right? Part of the advantage of a modern data protection strategy and removing that sprawl is enabling use of the solution, right? Consumer-like use, the ability to pick up your phone and log into Netflix, right, and not need a PhD to manage will enable your end users, application owners, right, and even storage admins to actually use the solution in the first place, right, without the need for extensive training. And so, the typical tasks of a day-to-day backup admin aren't really relevant, to those folks. So I ask, how are you managing those classic challenges like job scheduling and load balancing, right? How can your end user, such as a database administrator, actually utilize the solution on their own, self-service? And oftentimes ask, how are recoveries serviced, especially from alternate repositories such as cloud, right? Are you relying on the solution to provide that for you, or are there manual steps involved that now introduce that complexity out to your end users? Ecosystem integration and extensibility, just removing classic barriers to legacy technology, right? And incorporating automation and orchestration, right? Done effectively, integration into the storage environment itself removes some of those legacy limitations placed on that storage, right? A great example is, NDMP, right? With NAS providers, right? I know we just spoke to Netapp as a great example there. Netapp has a lot of tech built in to help remove those old barriers, right? And take advantage of their APIs to do things in not just a faster methodology by throwing more horsepower at it, but a smarter methodology, right? That they've actually provided for you, right? And so how can, your data protection integrate with the existing tools and processes for you, right? For your environment, is a great question to ask, as well as, near zero RTO recoveries. How does your backup and recovery solution provide that? And what capabilities could that offer to your end users if they could instantly access copies of their data in a very simple and automated fashion? And then what kind of integration, not just to your tools and processes, but to the actual hardware providers that you're using today, is exactly a way to remove the complexity, especially from on-premise storage solutions. And the next up here is cloud integration, right? I mean, we've had this huge move to the cloud, right, over the last 10, 15 years. And a lot of it is because of the the agile, the agility that cloud provides us. So, how does the data protection solution that you're evaluating enable hybrid and public cloud architecture, again, to keep the scope, as much as what's relevant to you as possible? And how does it minimize, it should minimize the cost of cloud resources. The issue here is that treating cloud as if it were the same as your data center can be very expensive, right? utilizing the native tools there will ensure that you can continue marrying to the agility provided to you, right, from cloud while mitigating unnecessary costs, right? It's a similar example to integration with hardware. Cloud providers, all the major public cloud providers that you're familiar with, they provide APIs and data lifecycle APIs galore. And so, interfacing with that removes, the need to have to run classic resource, backup servers, media servers on beefy, instances that cost you in the end and also impact your ability to report your SLAs as well. And so asking, how does your tool solve for, how does that tool protect platform as a service, a solution as a service and infrastructure as a service workloads, right? So PaaS, SaaS, and infrastructure workloads. I would just say, it's a great thing to ask, do you have to run your own compute? That's another point of management and a cost to the organization. And then with the storage tiers that cloud provides, it's now a race to zero, right? And so understanding how the solution will be able to use those most cost-effective tiers is really important to capping costs as well. Things like Archive tier in Azure, Glacier in AWS, and Coldline in GCP as examples. And finally, data insight, right? And I thought this one was really important. If I speak to you about why I came to Rubrik, this might be the number one reason. But, if your data is important to you or to your organization, then chances are pretty good that you're backing it up, right? And so that backup becomes a central ingress point, of all critical data. And it's, that is a huge opportunity to provide critical value back to the organization. And so what we're talking about here is metadata analysis that can serve several purposes, right? Verification of data governance policies and ransomware-specific analysis, right? To impact the RTO, right? To provide value back to the organization. And so, one specific question to ask would be, how does your solution specifically identify encrypted data, right, versus just anomalous data, right, to remove from alert fatigue and actually give you a very high confidence understanding that this data was encrypted and the ransomware attack occurred. How could that solution then remediate, right? In the event that now it's able to provide you that information, what does the recovery look like and how are you able to service it? And proactively, how can the solution identify sensitive data proactively, right? And flag it for you so that you know to get it out, right? I mean, that some end user didn't dump a database, for example, that had credit card numbers on it into, their home share, which was then, later exposed. So things like that are where, a modern data protection strategy, altogether, right, can take, the complexity of the data sprawl out of the equation, integrate across the entire platform, and certainly, that's why I came to Rubrik, and that's what we believe, we're enabling, right? Is really just that, right? Trying to build that modern data protection solution that's giving you all of that visibility, and at a high level, that's really most of what I wanted to go through today. This just a quick word on Rubrik. All of the key tenets. Obviously, I wouldn't be espousing them, right, if I didn't feel confident that's what we're providing today, right? Is a single platform that has the scope and visibility into your entire environment, extends into cloud, provides automation for rapid recovery, and an API-first design to integrate with all of the different key areas of your infrastructure and cloud provider, and then take that data protection and provide value-add services on top, such as cyber resilience and data governance. And so that's my quick commercial. You know, we have some links here if you guys are interested, right? You know, you can take a look at some of the keynotes that we had at our recent user conference. Also some notes on ransomware. There's a couple of ebooks here. You know, ransomware and cyber resiliency. We've seen more of it in the last year than probably the rest of my career. And, you know, we definitely have some insight on the vendor side. And also just, you know, in relation to what we were talking about here, modernizing your backup, feel free to download a copy of our ebook here, Top 20 Questions to Ask when modernizing your backup. And before I wrap, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't let you know that we just wrapped up our second global user conference. We call it Rubrik Forward. You can check it out at forward.rubrik.com. And there you'll find recordings of all of the keynotes from various industry leaders, some major announcements that we've made on our platform, and some informative breakouts with, you know, direct interviews with customers and peer-to-peer insights. And David, that's all I have for today. Hopefully that was, I didn't put you to sleep.
No, excellent presentation. I learned a lot. I'm sure the audience did as well. Maybe time for just one or two questions here. And while we do that, I'm going to bring up the poll question for everyone out there in the audience. I want to call your attention to the poll on the screen. Let's see, a lot of good questions coming in. Of course, we encourage your questions. We've got our best question prize as well. Michael is asking a question here about the audit trail, or what sort of, you know, change detection, change history might be possible with the Rubrik solution.
I'm just reading the question myself. Could you expand on what capabilities there are on which product? So, you know, it's actually interesting, right? Like obviously on Rubrik itself, we provide full auditing of our platform, right, et cetera, et cetera. I gather that this question is going a little bit deeper, and it is a great question, right? Today, our platform does give you the ability to track anomalies, and it also gives you the ability to track entropy, right, or encryption of actual data, and then remediate it, right? Additionally, we do have a portion of our solution called Sonar, and I think that's more along the lines of where Michael is going. And what that's actually doing is sensitive data analysis and access monitoring. I wouldn't, you know, in spirit of transparency, I wouldn't say it's a full audit trail tool yet, where it can provide you that forensic analysis. But we do have, you know, several instances where our customers are using it to identify, you know, what was in data that was potentially exfiltrated, which I'm sure everybody would understand is really important. So I would say that's where we are right now. You know, with the tool, we can provide the, you know, confirmation that the data was encrypted. We can validate access and use that as an exfiltration analysis tool. And in the future, we'll actually, this year, we'll actually have a lot more, Michael, I think, to speak to you about.
Excellent.
Not to steal my own thunder.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think we're running out of time here for our live Q&A, but, I mean, if folks want to get started with Rubrik, what do you recommend? What's the easiest course of action?
Yeah, just go take a look at Rubrik.com or, you know, speak to your local Rubrik team. Or value-added reseller, right? You know, we're happy to set up a meeting, give you a quick intro, you know, and a 15-minute demo, and you know, certainly go from there for whatever is best for your needs.
Excellent, excellent. And there's a lot more maybe technical questions you might be able to respond to electronically there in the queue, Stefan. But again, excellent presentation, and we really appreciate you being on today.
No, I really appreciate everyone's time. Thank you so much, David, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Stefan, and thank you to the Rubrik team for supporting the EcoCast today. Check out the link that's there in your audience console in the Handouts tab. That will take you to forward.rubrik.com, as as Stefan talked about. There is full on-demand recordings available from the Rubrik Forward conference, which I know there was a ton of, you know, announcements and new innovations at the conference. So make sure that you check out that for additional information on the latest and greatest from Rubrik. I'll leave that poll question up for anyone else who wants to respond to it. We do appreciate your feedback here, but we are about to move on to our final presentation. It's now time for our next presentation on today's EcoCast. Welcome Dave Russ, Senior Technology Account Manager at Synology. Dave, it's great to have you on. Take it away.
All right, thanks very much, and thank you everyone for joining. Today we are going to talk about complete backup and recovery using Synology. So this is going to help you protect your data from ransomware and of course other disasters as well. I will be your speaker today. My name is Dave Russ, and I am a Senior Technical Account Manager here at Synology. So over my time with Synology, I've been able to work with hundreds, probably thousands at this point, of different companies, helping them both on the hardware and the software side to make sure that they get something that is going to both fit their needs and their budget. So, question you might ask yourself is, why disaster recovery? Why do you need to have protection for your data? Hopefully, not too many of you need to ask this question, but I'm going to go over it just for the sake of being thorough. So, of course, the first issue is human error. Users make mistakes all the time. Anybody who's worked in IT for any period of time can tell you this. But it's not just internal issues that might happen. Ransomware attacks are absolutely on the rise. And then, of course, you want to also protect against things like natural disasters, whether that's, tornadoes, a flood, whether that's a fire. I mean, it really could be almost anything. And now during the pandemic, the FBI has said that cybercrime has increased 75%. That is obviously a huge number, and I'm sure a lot of that is due to ransomware attacks that are occurring. And $100,000 is the average ransomware payment that has been made. And very recently, $5 million is what the Colonial Pipeline ended up paying to get their data back. So this really is a huge deal, and I hope that you all understand how important it is to be able to not only back up your data, but also be able to recover quickly in the event of some kind of issue. So in your own environment, most likely data is going to be scattered across different platforms. So you've got computers, you've got physical servers. Most of you very likely also have virtual machines as well as some cloud data, mentioned here as software as a service. So it'd be great if we could somehow, get this all into a single backup as opposed to having to back up 4 different platforms. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about creating a complete disaster recovery plan with Synology. So we're going to get all of that data to a primary Synology device. That's step 1 here. We're also going to talk about getting to an offsite device. That's step 2. And then cloud backup we'll talk about a little bit as well. That is step 3. So let's start off at the beginning. Let's go to step 1, that primary backup. So first, let me talk about a real-world example of a customer who is using Synology for this exact purpose. The University of Washington had over 200 local and remote workstations that they needed to back up. So they had both PCs that were on campus and some that were also at home. There was sensitive information. Student data is no joke. That has to be handled properly. And they also needed streamlined management. So, the previous solution that they had required too much time both to back up, to restore, and also it was scattered. It was, once again, they got 4 different platforms and they had to pick and choose how to back up each of those. So the solution that we had is, hey, back up all of those devices to a Synology NAS device. So let's get into that. Let's talk about backing up PCs and other endpoint devices. The software that we're going to use for this is Active Backup for Business. So this is going to allow you, once again, to centralize the management of your backups of these different services. Once again, PCs, physical servers, and virtual machines. And this has global deduplication. meaning that you're going to save space. Basically, it's not going to save blocks multiple times. If it's saved a block already, and then you need to save it again from another device, it's just going to point to that block and say, hey, we've already got that. So it's going to save you a ton of space, and it's going to save you bandwidth as well. And one of the key things here is there are no licensing fees or subscriptions related to Active Backup for Business. So this software comes free. You purchase the device and you're good to go. So let's go ahead. I want to walk through what it looks like to get that PC backup with Active Backup for Business. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so here we are in Disk Station Manager. I'm going to go right into Active Backup for Business. And you can see we start in our Overview tab here. On the left, top left here, you can see that we've got 2 PCs that we're backing up. And in the top middle, we've got a backup calendar. So we can see the last 5 weeks worth of backups. And if it's a green dot, everything's been successful. In the middle here, we can see that we've got 3.8 terabytes worth of data coming from those 2 PCs, and after deduplication, it's only taking up 1.8 terabytes worth of space. Of course, as you add more devices to this, you're very likely to get a better deduplication ratio the more devices that you do have. I'll go into our PC tab on the left here, and we can see those 2 devices. We can see that the most recent backup was successful, and if we wanted to create a new task as far as our backup, I can hit highlight it and click Create Task, hit Next, choose the folder that I want to back up to. Active Backup for Business sounds great. We can choose whether we want to back up the entire device or specific volumes and back up external hard drives. We can also enable data transfer compression and encryption. And we can choose whether we want to do manual backups, whether we want to schedule these backups, and we can choose if we want these backups to only run during a specific window of time. Let's say we only want them to run on the weekends. We could do this and hit OK, and we'd be good to go. We can hit Next and get to our retention policy. So we can either keep all versions, or we can choose some specific time frame that we want to keep. So we could keep only versions for the last certain number of days, months, years, etc. And then before we create the task, we get to review all of the things that we set up, and I would just hit apply here to create that task. I already have one created, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. In our task list, you can see that we get the same options. We can select our task and go to edit, and we can change the settings that we had set up when we created the task. We can also manually click back up here to back up the specific task. And we can look at previous versions of the backups that we've already taken. So that is pretty much the long and short of it as far as backing up your PCs and some of your other devices. All right, so moving on. Let us talk about backing up data from Microsoft 365, which is absolutely a pretty new use case for M365 customers. So I want to talk again about a sort of real-world use case with a vocational college that took advantage of Synology devices. They had 18,000 students and 1,000 faculty. And they were leveraging M365 for a lot of their data. They sort of realized their reliance on the platform. And so they needed to back up 30,000 drive accounts and 60,000 email accounts across 10,000 different sites. And the reason you'll notice the discrepancy in the number of drive and email accounts and the students and faculty is they needed to retain student and staff data for an extended period of time. So former students and faculty needed to be stored on this device as well. And the pandemic really made this college realize how much they were relying on M365, how much they were using it, how much data they had stored on there that they weren't backing up in any way. And they sort of realized, oh, this is not a backup. You know, Microsoft's policy did not satisfy what they were looking for as far as retention and as far as really kind of the safety of that data. And so once again, they used a Synology device, in this case it was a rack device, for an on-prem backup of that cloud data. So this allowed them to satisfy their retention goals, This allowed them to reduce their IT effort, and it allowed them to save money on fees. Once again, there are no software licenses or subscription fees that you're going to have to pay for. You just pay for the hardware, and the software comes with it. So let's get started with M365 backup. So I'm just going to talk to you about the software itself. So Active Backup for Microsoft 365 is what we call it. And once again, this allows you to create that local backup. It supports OneDrive, SharePoint Online, Exchange Online, and Teams. And let's just jump straight into it. I'm going to show you what it looks like to back up your M365 data to your Synology device. Go ahead and share my screen. All right, here we are back in Disk Station Manager once again, and I'm going to go into Active Backup from Microsoft 365. So we can see that we've got protected services over here: Drive, Mail, SharePoint Sites, Contacts, and Calendar. And we've got, once again, our backup summary. So we can see the last 5 weeks worth of backup data. And in our service usage, you can see that our Drive is taking up most of that data, whereas the other services are not taking up quite so much. We've also got a bunch of different users here. We've got a backup running right now, so you might have seen different users actually pop up here. And we've got Jon Snow taking up most of this data. So I'm going to go into our task list so we can take a look at this. And like I said, we're currently backing up this information. We've got a whole bunch of different users that we are backing up. And if we wanted to create, let's say, a new backup task, we would hit create a new backup task, next. And we've got all of this information that we need to put in. Now, luckily, we have created a tutorial. I'll go ahead and click into that, and I'll click Microsoft 365. And we've got this step-by-step tutorial. We just have to run a quick script, get some information from our M365 tenant, and we are good to go. And essentially, once you have all of that information placed in here, and you generate your certificate file and create a password for it during that process, then you're good to go. You can go on to the next steps here. Now, I've already got this task created. Let me show you what it looks like when you are creating your own task and some of the things that you can change. So in our user side here, what you can do is you can select different users and say, I want to back up all of the services for this particular user. Or you can select specific services and back up their entire, an entire service for all of your users. Same idea here with groups. You can back up entire groups, or you can go into the services and you can back up the entire service for your different users. SharePoint sites is super simple. You can just select the SharePoint sites that you do want to back up. So you can go ahead and select those. And now auto discovery service is something that I want to talk about, which is really, really awesome. It's a great tool because what you can do is select that you want to back up all new users, new groups, and new SharePoint sites that are created in M365. So this protects you where every single user that you create in M365, you don't have to go in and manually go into this user tab and select that you want to back up their data. And you can always go back in later and you can say, oh, you know what, that one specific user, I didn't actually want to back up certain data that auto discovery service backed up for them. Instead, you can just remove that at a later time. And the last tab here is our policy. So you can set up whether you want a continuous backup to run throughout the day, whether you want to manually backup only, or whether you want to set a specific schedule for your backup. And then lastly here, we've got our file version retention policy. So you can either preserve all of your versions, or let's say that you had to maintain versions for the last 365 days, you can set that here and you're good to go. You just hit OK. And that is really it. That is how you back up your Active Backup for Microsoft 365 data. And I'm going to go ahead back into the presentation. All right, so moving right along. Once again, I mentioned we were going to talk about a complete disaster recovery plan. So we're going to briefly touch on steps 2 and steps 3 here. So we're going to talk about offsite backup and we're going to talk about cloud backup. So as far as offsite backup is concerned, we've got snapshot replication. So this software is going to allow you to protect the data that's on your local device, and it's going to allow you to replicate to another Synology device offsite. You're going to be able to take snapshots up to every 5 minutes on that local device, and then replicate those once again up to every 5 minutes to the offsite device. And you can also customize your retention policy to fit your specific company's needs. For the cloud portion, we've got Synology C2. So this is integrated cloud backup. You can use our hyper backup software in order to back up all of this data. And there's no download or restoration fees. This is a big differentiator with Synology C2 storage versus some of the other big cloud storage providers. And you can also encrypt your data before you actually upload it to protect against middleman attacks where they're getting your data before it actually gets up to the cloud. You know, even if it's encrypted up there, if it's not encrypted when you send it, it's really not safe. I am open for questions. Thanks very much for taking the time to join me today. And please go ahead and roll them in, and I will answer them as they come.
All right, excellent presentation. Really love that demo. Thank you so much for showing us the Synology solution, Dave. So we've got some questions for you from the audience, and while we do that, I'm just going to bring up this poll. Everyone should see here on the screen that says, what additional information would you like about the Synology solution? And of course, we appreciate your feedback there on that poll. We got a lot of great questions coming in from the audience, so thank you for those. Keep those coming. Dave, you ready for some Q&A?
Absolutely, yeah, and I will be happy to pick a few of those out and just give a quick response on that. I think we've got a decent amount of time on Q&A. I think I went a little bit short on the total presentation, but let's get right into it. The first question that I want to address is Active Backup for Business available on all Synology NASs? And the answer to that is no. Technically, there are some of our lower end models that actually don't support Active Backup for Business. What I would recommend for anybody who is interested in which models do support it is go to our website, and honestly you can just go in Google and type in Synology Active Backup for Business, and on that feature page on our website, there's in the top right, there will be a button that says Applied Models. And if you click on that, you'll figure out which ones the software can be installed on and work properly. It's a ton of them. It's basically almost all of them, except for some of the much lower end models. So that's a great question. I'm glad that you brought that up. Another question, does Active Backup for Business, sorry, it's phrased interestingly. Does Active Backup for Business on PC/servers utilize an agent? How are backup sources discovered? It does use an agent. So essentially, what you do is just install that agent on the specific device. So, you know, a Windows PC or a Windows server, and then you are good to go. Essentially, you log into the Synology device from the agent, and then you're good from there. So the Synology device will just pull the data from the device. So that is, yeah, that's pretty much everything there. Oh, I do want to mention for virtual machines, that is agentless. So all you would need to log in for your Hyper-V and your VMware environments, all that you would need to do is log in. So you'd need the IP address and the username and password for the host, and then you don't have to install an agent or anything like that for those VMs. Does Synology have a set time frame for supporting their NAS units with firmware/software? So the answer to that is your software support that you would receive from our support team is for the lifetime of the system. So you know, as long as that thing powers on, yeah, you know, even if it's out of warranty, we will help you out. We will support you. We'll make sure that you are that you're getting what you need. As far as the kind of the firmware, you know, /software, I'll say we kind of can't guarantee anything past the warranty date, but I have seen many systems, for 8-9 years get updates. So we're generally very, very good about getting you updates, even on older systems. So that's a great question. Let me see here. Okay, this is a good one. So I'm not sure how a snapshot keeps you from backing up encrypted data from ransomware. How is Snapshot preventing that? That's a good question, because essentially the answer is it doesn't. It doesn't stop the encrypted data from being taken in the snapshot or from being replicated to another device. But because those snapshots are read-only, essentially you are not you're not overwriting the previous versions. So if you do need to go back in time, go back to the version that's not infected with the ransomware, you can still do that because it wasn't able to encrypt the existing version of your data in that snapshot. So that's essentially how that helps you to not lose your data, because it's creating a read-only copy, and that's really protecting you. Okay, I'll entertain this one. Has Synology NAS been hacked before? If it happened before, then what lessons learned to prevent a future hack? So it's an interesting question, because I mean every system at some point or another has had some sort of breach, and honestly, typically, no matter what system it is, that is due to an issue with management, let's say, with your password, with your account. So in other words, you might leave the admin account available for logging in, and hackers will know to use that, right? They'll try and brute force into your system through the admin account. So we do have some great tips and kind of guides, which best practices on our device, where it will specifically say to you, hey, remove your admin account, set passwords with with a certain difficulty, and it will notify you when there are problems that you need to look into. So definitely check that out, and Synology's basically doing everything that we can from our end to patch and update and send out nano updates that are non-disruptive. You don't have to shut down your device or anything like that to get those new updates that are going to protect you. But we're also trying to make sure that you get all of the information that you need in order to set up your system in a way that is where you're protecting yourself. It's a lot of it does come down to how you manage your data, how you manage your device and your settings. How are we looking on time? Am I over?
No, time for a few more questions.
Perfect. Okay, let me take a quick look through here. Okay, this is a vague one. How much space do snapshots take up? The answer to that question is it depends. It definitely depends. And let's imagine that you've got a one device A, and you want to replicate to device B. So essentially what you're going to do is you're going to take snapshots on device A. So you're going to get versions of the data that you already have on device A. So those snapshots that you're taking are not very big. Those are, kilobytes generally, because all that has to do is keep track of where the data is on your system. So it's keeping track of, okay, what files are in what folders. It's basically taking a snapshot of what the structure is. And then when you replicate, you have to send all of the data as well. So you're sending the data and the snapshot to that secondary device. Now, if you made a big change to some of that data, you're going to have to create new blocks, right? You're going to have to modify the data, and that's going to have to be tracked at both sides. But in general, the actual snapshots themselves, they don't take almost any space. as long as you are keeping in mind how much current space that you have on the device, and as long as you're keeping track of basically the change data, which honestly doesn't typically take too much either. Once again, it's block level, so it's saving you space in that regard as well. Generally, I would say however much usable space that you have, just add a very tiny amount, 10% more, and generally you'll be good. I can't give a too specific of an answer because it does depend a lot. Let's see. Okay. We got another pretty generic one. What Synology NAS model should I use? So if you want to get all of the software that you've seen today, once again, I recommend going to the feature page on our website for each of the pieces of software and just click Applied Models and make sure that whichever device you pick, it does support the device does support the software. But most of what you're going to want to do is figure out your capacity that you need. If you need multiple terabytes, dozens of terabytes, of space, you're probably going to want an 8 drive bay unit or a 12 drive bay unit. We have rack units with redundant power. So we have the ability to scale, but you're going to want to think about capacity. You're going to want to think about performance. We've got devices with Intel Xeon processors all the way down to Intel Celerons. We've got some new devices with AMD Ryzen processors that are less expensive but still pretty powerful. So there's kind of too much to think about in that regard. We do have what we call our NAS selector on our website as well, so you can definitely check that out. I do recommend getting in contact with with a reseller, getting in contact with us at Synology to figure out exactly what's going to fit for you. Sometimes that NAS selector is not the most precise when it comes to speccing everything out.
Dave, I think that's all the time we have here in our live Q&A.
Perfect.
But
okay.
Yeah, so many excellent questions coming in. I see your team is answering those
really
questions electronically as well. So I know the audience appreciates that. Thank you for showing us the power of the Synology solution today.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll get back to everybody in the Q&A here. But yeah, thanks for having me, and have a fantastic day, everybody.
Thanks, Dave. We appreciate it, and thank you to Synology for supporting the EcoCast today. Check out in the Handouts tab there, you'll find a ebook on the Synology Solution Guide that goes into just about everything you need to consider when it comes to selecting a Synology NAS system. So a really nicely done guide there in the Handouts tab for more information. And I'll leave up the poll question on the screen. If you haven't responded to that poll, please do so now. The Synology folks would like to hear from you. And with that, I will announce our final Amazon $500 gift card winner. That's going out to Kimberly English from California. Congratulations, Kimberly English from California. We also have our best question prize winners, and we will be contacting those via email after the event. I'm going to post the winners of all the gift cards. And before we go, just to wrap up, I want to thank everyone for joining. Don't forget to subscribe to all the Actual Tech Media social channels. There's the 10 on Tech podcast over in the iTunes store. We have our LinkedIn page, YouTube channel, Twitter. All those are on the top right-hand side of your audience console. If you are a potential sponsor of an upcoming event, we would love to chat with you. Email us at connect@actualtechmedia.com. And finally, I hope to see you on next week's EcoCast happening on Wednesday. The title is Tool Time, the tools that supercharge a Microsoft on-premises or cloud environment. On that event, you'll hear from Thycotic, Gigamon, Red Hat, Druva, and Netapp. Hope to see you on the EcoCast next week. I hope that you enjoyed the event today. I know that I did. We'll see you next time, and have a great day. Bye-bye.